Hey everyone, we all think about it, right? We all go through it. But what if aging wasn't this inevitable fact of life? What if it was just a code, a biological program that we could finally crack, and maybe, just maybe, even rewrite? Okay, let's get into this, because it's a wild idea. This is the big question. This is what's driving a whole revolution in biology. I mean, for pretty much all of human history, the answer was obvious, right? You're born, you live, you get old. But today, well, a whole bunch of scientists are starting to challenge that. They're looking at aging not as our destiny, but as a condition, something that could, potentially, be treated. So before we can even begin to talk about stopping the clock or turning it back, we first have to understand how the clock actually works. And it turns out, the number of candles on your birthday cake, that's really only part of the story. The real secret, the important number, is our biological age.
Okay, so you gotta get this distinction. Your chronological age? Super simple. It's just a number that ticks up once a year every year. Can't change it. But your biological age? Now that is the real story of your health. It's all the wear and tear on your body, the damage to your cells from how you live, your genes, the environment, all of it. So you can have two people who are both 40 years old, but one might have the body of a 30-year-old, while the other has the biology of a 50-year-old. That's the difference.
So how in the world do we measure something like that? The key is this amazing tool called the epigenetic clock. Think of it like this. Your DNA is the master blueprint for your body, right? The big book of you. Well, the epigenome is like a bunch of sticky notes and highlights written all over that blueprint. One of the most important kinds of these notes is called methylation. Now, these little notes don't change the blueprint itself, but they tell your cells which parts of the book to read and which parts to ignore. As we get older, the pattern of these notes changes in a really predictable way. And by reading those patterns, scientists can figure out your biological age with honestly incredible accuracy.
To make this a little less abstract, let's zoom in on one specific thing that this biological clock is tracking. It's a really great way to see how our bodies are literally keeping time at the cellular level.
I want you to meet the telomere. The easiest way to think about these things is to picture the little plastic caps on the ends of your shoelaces. They're there to stop your shoelaces from fraying, right? Well, telomeres do the same thing for your chromosomes every single time a cell divides. But here's the catch. Every time a cell divides, those little protective caps get a tiny bit shorter, and shorter, and shorter. Eventually, they get so short that the cell can't divide safely anymore. It hits the brakes, stops dividing, and basically enters old age. This is one of the biggest hallmarks of aging, and telomere length is one of the most important ticks of our biological clock.
Okay, so we get it. Our biological clocks are ticking away, our telomeres are getting shorter, but this is where the story takes a turn and gets really, really exciting. See, scientists aren't just watching this happen anymore. They are actively trying to jump in and hack the code.
And this isn't science fiction. This is stuff being tested in labs right now. You've got cellular reprogramming, which is literally about hitting a reset button on old cells to make them young again. Then there are senolytics. These are drugs designed to hunt down and destroy those old dysfunctional zombie cells that hang around causing problems. And remember how we talked about telomeres getting shorter? Well, some scientists are working on activating an enzyme that can actually rebuild them. And of course, there's gene editing, using tools like CRISPR to go in and maybe one day fix the DNA damage that builds up as we age. This one quote just nails the shift we're living through. A leading geneticist put it this way: we are moving from reading the code of life to writing it. Think about that. For decades, we were just trying to understand our own biology. Now we're starting to edit it, to reprogram it. We're going from being passive readers to active writers of our own code.
Look, the science here is absolutely mind-blowing. But as we get closer and closer to these breakthroughs, we have to hit pause for a second and think about the consequences. Because if we actually succeed in slowing down or even reversing aging, it will change everything. Literally everything about being human. And that brings up some huge, huge questions. And this is probably the first one that comes to mind. Who gets access to this? Would these incredible treatments be for everyone or just for the wealthy? You could end up with a brand new kind of class divide, a biological one, where the rich can buy themselves more youth, more time, while everyone else just ages and dies like always. How do we make sure that doesn't happen?
And then you have to think about the planet. What happens to Earth in a world where people might live for hundreds of years? What does a massive, ever-growing population mean for our resources, for climate change, for our cities? I mean, can our planet even handle billions of people who don't follow that natural cycle of life and death? It's a serious question.
And finally, you get to this really deep philosophical place. Think about it. So much of what drives us, our art, our ambition, our search for meaning, is shaped by the fact that we know our time here is short. Deadlines are what make us get things done. If you take away that ultimate deadline, what happens to the human spirit? Would we still create and strive and love with that same kind of urgency? Or would we just procrastinate forever?
So, that's where we are, standing at this unbelievable crossroads between an ancient biological reality that has governed all life and a future that we might be able to design ourselves. The science is moving at an incredible speed, but the ethical and societal questions are just as big and just as important. The power to choose our own expiration date might actually be within our reach, and the responsibility that comes with that, well, it's staggering. What do you think we'll do?